You ever wake up one morning, coffee still hot in your hand, and realize 500 strangers are pitching tents on your back pasture without so much as a knock on the door or a, hey, hope you don't mind? Yeah, that was me not so long ago. Let me just say, if you're gonna rob a guy blind, maybe don't do it on the property his grandfather built from nothing, or when that guy's got 40,000 bees with trust issues and a lot of time on his hands. Let's back up a second. I'm Wes, 62. Born and bred just outside Millerville, California, on the same chunk of land my granddad claimed back in '52. Lived my whole life here, worked 30 years as a firefighter, ran into flames, pulled folks out, all that. Thought I'd seen about every kind of disaster until a certain neighbor, let's call her Karen, because of course rolled up with her white Tesla, Instagram dreams, and a clipboard that seemed permanently attached to her wrist. She'd moved in, bought the biggest house money could buy in Meadowview, the kind with more marble than a courthouse, more square footage than my entire farm. And she fancied herself queen of the block, life coach, yoga guru, and naturally the newly minted president of our HOA. Which, if you haven't had the pleasure, is just a nice way of saying, I control your property values now, peasant. I wasn't looking for a fight. Not at first. My wife Sharon had passed a few years earlier. Cancer sudden left me rattling around our old house like a dropped marble. Started keeping bees more for the company than the honey at first. Named each hive after buddies I'd lost in the service. Rodriguez, Captain Murphy, Jimmy Kowalski. Therapy with wings, you know. But Karen, she'd show up unannounced, clipboards in hand. Those designer sneakers stomping my gravel drive like she owned the place, pointing at my bees, at my tomato patch, treating me like I was running a biohazard lab, not a vegetable garden. She even filed an official complaint. Dangerous livestock threat to children, devalues property. Demanded I remove the hives or pay $500 a day in fines. Claimed she'd call animal control, cited some ordinance she definitely made up while reading next-door comments. I mean, really, who complains about bees in farm country? That's like moving to the ocean and whining about the sound of waves. But see, here's what Karen didn't know. 30 years in the fire department teaches you two things: the meaning of brotherhood and that some folks only understand consequences. I'd held dying strangers run into buildings most people run out of. I'd learned to stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves, and that included myself. So I hit back the only way I knew. Brought every scrap of paperwork to the HOA safety assessment. My beekeeping certificates permits membership in the Central Valley Beekeepers Association. Even brought a neighbor's letter about how my bees doubled his tomato yield. The animal control guy, Rodriguez, young nervous, couldn't find a single thing wrong. My Italian honeybees, he said, were gentle as house cats. Karen sputtered about killer bees and African strains, but the facts were the facts. In fact, the officer warned her about filing false reports. That should have been the end of it, but people like Karen, they don't just give up. They escalate. And boy, did she escalate. Soon enough, she'd started a whole community wellness group, pitching herself as a champion for reclaiming public spaces. She gathered followers online, people who'd never so much as set foot on a dirt road, started leading yoga walks straight across my fields, claiming historic access that never existed. Every day they'd tromp through my clover pose for selfies in front of my hives, talk about mindful living while ignoring the big no trespassing signs I'd posted every 50 feet. Her husband Derek was no better. Some tech guy, always in brand new hiking boots, never a speck of dirt on him. Started showing up with survey equipment, GPS laser levels, acting like he was mapping the moon, not a patch of rural California. Claimed he was marking public boundaries. I started documenting every intrusion, trail cams, time-stamped photos, the whole works. Spent nights digging through county deeds, old surveys. My grandfather's paperwork was ironclad. No public easements, no historical rights, no shared roads. Karen and her crew. Every step they took was trespassing, plain and simple. And then came the twist. Turns out Derek's fancy survey found something they didn't want to see. His own house's septic system was dumping straight onto my land. Been leaking for months, probably longer. When I confronted him, he nearly swallowed his tongue, mumbled something about surveying errors, then disappeared faster than you can say EPA violation. My lawyer, Pete Neighbors, kid, good man, said Karen and Derek were looking at thousands in fines, maybe even criminal charges. But did that stop them? Not a chance. If anything, it made them more desperate. Suddenly, Karen's online post got unhinged, accused me of harassing newcomers, claimed I was a threat to community safety, said I was having a mental health crisis. Meanwhile, her wellness walks turned into an army of Instagrammers, all leaving tracks through my alfalfa. She must have thought if she stirred up enough drama, I'd give up and sell just like the last two families they'd bullied out of their homes in other towns. See, Pete dug up the dirt. Derek and Karen had pulled this scam before. Harassed an old couple with code violations, forced them to sell cheap, flipped the land for millions. Did it again to a veteran with therapy horses. The more I learned, the more my blood boiled. This wasn't some HOA spat. This was a calculated repeat con real estate fraud dressed up as community improvement. They wanted my land for a server farm. Millions in profits, all built on forcing me out. So yeah, I got mad. Not the punch the wall kind. The plan every move like a fire scene kind. Started documenting every single thing. Every trespass, every survey, every fake document Karen brought to the sheriff. Her historical easement papers still smelled like fresh toner. Even caught her trying to bribe the county inspector right in my own yard. My old friend Eddie caught it all on tape. County filed charges before she'd even left the driveway. And still she didn't quit. Planned her wellness retreat weekend, 500 people, $50 a head, food trucks, porta potties, the works. Dropped a pin right in my back pasture, posted all over social media. If you're wondering, yes, she was making a profit off land she didn't own while my bees hummed along just waiting for the show. Now, I've always believed you don't pick a fight with a guy who's got nothing left to lose. And you sure don't pick one with a guy who's got thousands of bees that take trespassing real personal. So with some help from Eddie, I rigged the hives. Simple motion sensors when the speakers started thumping and crowds got too close. Hive entrances dropped and 40,000 bees got a clear path to see what all the fuss was about. Saturday morning rolled around. Air crisp, sky blue, 500 people buzzing with excitement thinking they were about to find mindful community. Instead, they got the real lesson. What happens when you treat private property like your own backyard? Karen's opening speech was still echoing across the field, something about reclaiming spaces when the bass hit and the hives came alive. My bees surged out like a storm, dark clouds of them, while campers dropped yoga mats and ran for the Teslas. Food truck guys bolted. Survey gear got abandoned in the chaos. You ever seen 500 people realize at the same exact second that they're not welcome? It's a beautiful thing if you like a little poetic justice. Karen tried to keep her cool, yelling at the crowd, blaming extremist tactics, but there's only so much positive thinking you can do when bees are going after your organic deodorant. Ambulances rolled up, sheriff's cruisers followed, and Channel 7's cameras caught every second. Derek, bless his heart, tried to sneak away with his survey gear but got stopped by the deputy before he hit the end of the driveway. And me, I sipped my coffee, watched the whole thing from the porch. Deputy asked if I'd deliberately released the bees. No, ma'am, I said, but they sure don't like loud strangers. Neither do I. Showed the news reporter all my documentation, the real estate fraud, the fake documents, the evidence from Pleasanton and Petaluma. Channel 7 aired it live. Karen's face went through more shades of red than a stoplight as the whole town and the internet watched her scheme unravel. Within weeks, the dominoes fell. Karen and Derek were charged fraud, document forgery, bribery, trespassing. Derek lost his business license. Their company got sued by everyone who'd been misled about the camping event. The old couples they'd forced out in other towns got their day in court, finally some justice. And you know what happened next? Something even better than revenge. The HOA dissolved. Property values stabilized. People stopped believing the lies. I used my settlement to help the local fire department to deliver honey to folks who couldn't get out anymore. Kids started coming out for beekeeping workshops, learning about pollinators and respect for the land. My daughter finally called, said she was proud I'd stood my ground. Sitting here now, porch creaking under me, bees humming as the sun goes down, I realize the real lesson. Bullies think they can buy, sue, or bluff their way through anything. But every now and then, the smallest creatures, whether they've got wings or just a stubborn streak, show you the power of standing your ground. Doesn't matter how slick the scheme is or how many followers you have online. Truth wins. Community matters. So I gotta ask, what would you have done if 500 people showed up in your backyard thinking they had the right to take what your family built? Where's the line between standing up for yourself and going too far? Ever had an HOA nightmare or stood up to someone trying to take what's yours? Drop your stories below. I'd love to hear how you handled it. And just remember, sometimes justice comes with 40,000 tiny wings and a lesson you'll never forget.